what the building inspector can do about a stop work order. You can search, stop, and it'll get you to the place. And it'll tell you right where, and then the procedure's right there, about what to do.
This is how I actually got started with us and our codes, is that I found that the answer to a lot of questions that were lacking in our code was go to the international code, or go to Suffolk County or the town of Brookhaven, because it's all there. But then if you put in a key word, you get, a couple thousand responses because it's taken out of context. It's just the word, wherever the word appears. And especially in the international code, you can spend forever doing it. Even Mike said, I'm familiar with it. And he says, he just uses the book version because he knows where it is, and he can. So for us, and for certainly all the residents at large, if you have a question, I think it's a great thing now that we have our codes online, and you can go from the link to the actual codes and punch in a keyword. It's just small enough that while you do get a lot of extraneous stuff, you can eventually find it relatively easily, and you're looking for, get an answer, if it's written clearly. So that's another complaint that I have, is that the international codes are written pretty much for lawyers, as far as I can tell, because it's really,
It's in Boston.
it's tough. So when you say it's already available, or there's a link, to me that is not sufficient for myself or the average resident who wants to find an answer to something. So if I can find something and then write it in everyday language that's going to be in our little codes, that we can all access relatively easily, I would try to do that. But where I see there's a gray area is what is the law, i.e. the code, and what is procedure. And from what I gather, procedures aren't finding their way into the code. It's just, this is the law. And here, we don't have a book of procedures. A lot of organizations, large organizations, don't have their policies and procedures. The policies would be the law, and here's how we do it. But we don't. So for something as simple as how do we go about condemning a property, which came up, well, we kind of have to figure that out as we go. So I don't know how we're going to handle that.
But why would you say that? There's law on that. Why would you say that?
But not in our code. That's what I'm saying. Nowhere in this building, say, do we have any way of knowing, unless somebody has experience doing it, they would have to then go and find it, or talk to somebody else in another village, how they go about doing it. Because, there's obviously various steps, but we don't really have that written anywhere.
Well, hopefully you would either call me, and I would explain to you how you do it, or you would call, or you would call the New York Conference of Mayors, and they would explain it to you. So if you wanted to condemn a building as far as placarding, what we would call placarding, meaning it can't be used for habitation, there's the steps to follow for that. If you want to condemn a building, meaning half the building burned and the rest is a hazard and has to be removed, that's a different type of condemnation. There's a procedure for that. It's under general municipal law and a few other areas of law.
So
you don't have to draft. You
would confer rather than look for the.
You don't have to take a year to draft a code. For a lot of these things, the law exists. If you want to do a code, that's fine. But I would also be happy to tell you the.
I don't want to do a code.
No, but I do like the idea of pulling out the building.
Yeah, I mean that's really not so much writing as editing, because we're going to be pulling and rearranging stuff that's already there.
So that really will change to, it's going to change 183, and I'll change whatever the new code is that we need for that.
Right.
Okay.
And have to assign.
Okay.
I have a 57.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I took your 57 and I just made it into a law. So right now 57 has two sections, 57.1 and 57.2. 57.2 is the penalty provision. So what your law, your idea was to create two sections, 57.1 and 57.2. So what this does, or is intended to do basically, is to make the existing 57.2, which is the penalties, becomes 57.3, and then your 57.1 and 57.2 would be the new sections. And a little bit of your 57.2 had, I used all the language that you had, I just copied it over, but it's a little bit of,
Not legal.
fluffiness. Yes,
Yeah.
that has
Hey,
to
well,
be-
I took that straight from the Brookhaven
Oh, you-
handout, but it's
Okay.
not from their code, that's.
Yes, we could tighten it up a little bit.
So everyone should take this home, review it, send comments to Jeff by,
We don't talk.
no, before that. We can set up a public hearing.
Yeah.
Um, By, you need 2 weeks, right, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, so by next Friday, the 20th, send anything to the board that you want to change, or you don't like, or you want to add. And then we'll schedule the public hearing for next month. Did you send this just to me, Chris?
I think I sent it to Frank as well.
Okay.
I sent it to the Daily Park.
Last couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, I would say, it looked okay to me. Frank, did you have any comments? The only comment I had is that we might want to add something about stormwater at the beaches and along the parks.
Okay.
Okay, which, beaches, so that, put something in there about stormwater, and kindling building, maintaining and using a fire or grill for any purpose, are not allowed, is that what you're saying? You might want to define this a little bit better, because people might barbecue, well, I don't know, we don't barbecues down there on the beaches. on the parks.
I think people may.
That's the
Okay.
crux of the issue with the open burning.
Yeah, so we should maybe
I
define that
can,
a little.
or delete it.
Yeah, okay. So then I would say send it to everyone on the board
Okay.
after that, okay? And then we can review it at the next meeting,
Okay.
okay? Okay, so last month we talked about possibly getting Town of Brookhaven to pay for part of all of the ADA ramp for the community dock. So I gave the application to Chris. You had some questions that, Joe, you might be able to answer, because we weren't sure.
So part of the ADA, the eligibility criteria that Brookhaven is looking for us to meet, all projects must meet one of these criteria. I'm not sure what they mean when they say here, on this piece right here for the application, of one of those three, which one we meet.
Well, what does this go to? This is eligible.
So that's
Because this is
part of
page
this
one.
document, yeah.
Yeah,
What's the, excuse me. Oh, this is for the block grant fund.
Right.
Okay. And this is for the ADA component of the dock?
Yeah, for the grant.
we might not get it, but we might, so it's worth trying.
What I would do is, I mean, it seems to be an urgent need. I mean, I think the only one that we would need is the urgent need. You have to describe, there's a health and safety issue if we don't have an ADA
Okay.
component.
No,
Right.
I think that's what I would say,
All right.
because the other two are gonna be, be an issue.
Okay.
So just describe that it's not, without the ADA feature, it's not gonna, ADA accessibility is going to be a potential safety issue. That'll be remedied by this.
I know I sent you the cost and I sent you the plans.
Mhm.
What was the cost again? Or just the ramp? I sent you Chris's email? I think I did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember, okay. Oh, that's the plan.
The plan.
Okay.
I can work with you on the language if you,
Okay.
if you want. Just start to get it ready and I'll help you with the language.
Great.
Do you know when it's due by?
It was already due.
It's
but
not
we-
tomorrow.
No,
No.
but we already spoke to them because we were waiting for the plans from the village engineer
Okay.
and for the cost. And they said it was fine to, get it in as soon as we could, basically, so they're not redoing them yet.
Some of these are like rolling grants.
Yeah,
You know.
and they have other ones too. She said if it
Right.
doesn't fall underneath this, she'll get it other
Good.
places, so. Okay. Okay, so the audit for the village, for 2016 to 17 is finished, with the exception of the, court. So the Justice Court is currently being audited by the New York State Controller's Office. And, so our auditing company couldn't get into, do the section of the audit for them. So, but they made arrangements between them and Christine to meet at the end of this month. So he'll be here in November to present to the board the, final, audit with the court. Okay. Joe, you have stuff? Oh, you know what? Oh, no, this is, okay. You had an update on Ashley? Did you have an update for Ashley?
The litigation?
Yeah.
So we have some litigation that the village is involved in. One is a challenging a zoning board of appeals decision. I think we call it Board Manor, if I'm not mistaken, that property and one of the properties over there. So it was the ZBA denied an application and the owner challenged it with what's called an Article 78 proceeding. And the village made a motion to dismiss. We're waiting, after several adjournments, the homeowner's attorney filed opposition to the motion to dismiss. And the next court date is October 18th October 25th, with papers due from the village sometime between now and then. So I'll start to put that together an outline of at this point it's called a reply. Reply is the response to the opposition, and I will confer with you and Karen Sartain about the village's reply.
Okay.
Just as a sidelight, as far as I know, the property was purchased through the Suffolk County auction process, if I'm not mistaken. So we should,
Was it?
Tax auction.
right, so we should probably, if that happens again for anything in the village, we should probably keep an eye open for that. There might be some kind of cooperation agreement we can enter with the county or the town. So that's that. It happened a while ago. I mean, it wasn't, but it's something we could keep track of. One of the things that I've started to work with a lot is the Suffolk County has upgraded their GIS system. I'm sorry, excuse me. Does anybody have a question about the Ashley? It's called Ashley Homes. It's Ashley Homes versus the village or the ZBA. Does anybody have a question about that? Case law? Okay, thanks. One of the things that I work with now a lot is the Suffolk County GIS system. I don't know if anybody has done that, but you can go in the Suffolk County GIS viewer. What's called the Suffolk County GIS viewer. You accept their conditions, and then you can get an aerial view of any property in the county, and you can also have the what's supposed to be the property lines. It's really the tax lot lines, but the property lines superimposed on the property. And I think with a lot of things that we do in the village, some of the projects we do, it might be helpful. If there's been a recent deed on the property, the tax lot line should be fairly accurate, because every time a deed is filed, it goes through the office that does the tax lines, and they readjust them based on the deeds. One of the other things that's really neat about this, the GIS viewer, is you can get dated, it goes back to, I think, the 1940s. It might actually go much farther back than that, but I recall the 1940s. So it goes about every 10 years back to the 40s, and then like in the last 10 years, it's every couple of years. But you can actually see, chronological sequencing of lots. Another thing about it is, so you can see if there's a question about whether something existed at a certain point in time, you can go back and actually see an aerial from 1957 or 1943, and you can have that view. One of the other things that it's useful for is you can see the property surrounding an application. So if you have an application before one of the boards to do something on a property, you can get an aerial, not just of that property, but you can get an aerial that's big enough to include the surrounding properties, so you can see how close houses are in adjoining properties and things like that, who's going to be affected by it. So that's another useful feature. So I wanted to mention that to you. There's a couple things going on in court.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We've been talking about the issue of the trees, of course, but a lot of other ways where the roads, the property lines are regarding the edges of the roads. And as we've said many times, with the waivers, can we get from that some kind of a map of the village that clearly delineates the roads? The front property line of all of the residences on the roads?
Well, you could see it from there. At this point, I could probably actually get it from the county, an actual map. I mean, you could see it online. You could print it out. I don't know how reliable that would be, but I could actually get it from the county. Now, depending on how long it's been since the deed was filed on the property, that determines how reliable these lot lines are.
Well, I don't know how easy it would be for any one of us to access it online, but if you have that ability, because here we are talking about trees, and then when we start talking about trees, you're talking about property lines, and whether or not it's our responsibility of the homeowners. And if we could determine exactly where the line is, that would be a big help for us.
Yeah, I could get an overlay from the county. I was doing it 2 or 3 years ago when we were first talking about this. I started to do this process, but it wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. But you can get at this point, I could get a colored overlay, a colored map of the village with a colored lot line overlay on it.
Roger, we talked about this.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add a couple of things. Yes, the site is not difficult to use, and I'd encourage people to use it. It's a lot of fun. While the lot lines are getting better, the photos are also getting better. Some of the uncertainty is just how well positioned the photographs are. So trying to decide whether a house is near a line or not near a line is in part because of the photo and in part because of the line. But it does provide lots of insight as to where things are. Just some of the plane sometimes takes a photo looking to the side this way, sometimes it looks to the side that way, and they don't make the houses all stand up, they're all tilted over. So at that scale, there's some uncertainty.
Right.
The last thing is that if, I think Mike talked to people in Suffolk County in the GIS, and it seemed that if the village gets some kind of GIS capability, and there are now open source free programs, then the county seemed willing to give some coverages like property lines and so on in a form that would actually be usable, and so we get more access to how they're constructed. So with this wonderful new system, if it's possible to get a GIS on there, and as I say, we made this public access one free equals free.
So in the short run, would we be able to now, going into this project, to take a look at the trees that might have an immediate impact in the storm season, can we, perhaps through you, or however we do this, do we have access where we
Well,
can start to see?
We could get a lot closer. The other uncertainty with the trees is that, well, yes. So sometimes you gotta find the bottom of the tree and not the top and so on. So it's not, I don't think it gives you a legal, good enough to be defendable in court, but it certainly gives a lot of insight as to what's going on. And, yes, I think one could.
So how do we do it now?
How do we do what?
Suppose tomorrow, Bill or any of us decide that we want to see whether this short list of trees that we already have is our responsibility or a resident. It's the other.
Right, so.
What do we do? Do we call you up, or how do we?
Yeah, so the Suffolk County setup, I don't think lets you put in points and see where they fall. You can only see their data. So we have, we being the result of that tree project, has files that say where trees ought to be or thought to be, and that lives on my computer and maybe somewhere else.
So, we could, what we could do is we do have some information in file, so we could go back and look for surveys. We might have surveys of property. The GIS system will give you like a general idea if there's a problem. I mean, it'll show obvious problems, but it's not gonna give you, like Roger said, it's not, they have all kinds of disclaimers on it that it's not to be used for title purposes and things like that. So, but if there's a particular property, we have records, and there's other places we can go for records to look and see.
My thinking is that it's not gonna get to that point. I mean, we have places in the village where the road is right there at the property line, 5 feet, and then it's 25 or more feet because of the wiggle. So as we walk along and we see, you identify a couple of trees, if it's all the way over, we can take a look at this and see whether or not it's way over the line or it's close. If it's close, we did what we did in the past, is we would just kind
Right,
of.
so hopefully as trees are identified, we'll, for work, we'll somehow figure out which ones they are in this database, so that, so we know that that's tree 1200 or whatever. And then that will help plot it, because we'll know which tree it is, if it's just sort of some tree. But yes, it's useful now just as a photograph. It's
So,
very useful.
John, you said you have a short list?
Yeah.
Okay,
I went over, like I said, there's a couple dead trees, and that's the biggest discrepancy. Like Roger and I were just our schedules just been all over the place. We were gonna Skype it, and that's what it was the whole up. So, you know, I went through this with Jim. We drove through everything. And he says, you know, it's just dead wood on some trees. It's stuff that's been up there for like 3 years because that's been, you know, it's mostly just cleaning up. That's it.
Yeah, but the issue is whether or not we do it as a
Right,
resident.
that's what-
So
that's-
what I'm saying is, right now, can we collate what you have in terms of identifying trees with either this program? And if so, how do we call, you know, operational, how's this gonna happen? Are you gonna talk to Roger, and we're gonna identify the tree as being ours, and then we're gonna take care of it?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's the thing. That's, you know, like I said, Roger and Mike, we're gonna stand, go through it, and you know, I mean, I love to go and get pictures because some of the stuff is, well, what is it?
So
But I
Roger,
think if you,
When can do that?
yeah, so we could, if one went to the tree location and pointed at a tree, we could figure out fairly quickly if it's likely to be a village tree or a private tree.
Okay, so that would be.
So Roger, we do have some computers now that the village hall got new ones.
Right.
We could clean one of them and then
Well,
put
so
that
I don't think
program on it.
it's that big a program,
Okay.
but in any case, there are free versions. One, that's important, and I think getting that under the village possession will allow some of these other coverages to, and then you can plot your own stuff.
So the village has tax sections for purposes of the tax map. Where people broken. Do you know how many sections we have? Is it 10 or 15? section block and lot, there must be 10 sections. Or something, well, anyway, I can get a map of each section in color there. I know the county will give us that, so I'll go out and get that, and that will at least be a start. And then the individual properties, we can get the individual maps, and that'll be helpful. And look and file and see the surveys there.
Anything else?
No.
ZBA?
Pardon me?
ZBA?
ZBA?
Yeah.
Well, we have the application, I think that the application's gonna be coming up for Boglia. That involves the cross easements that were given by the village and by the Boglias. The village, it'll be an application by, it's an application by the property owner to get a variance for a fence that he put up that's not on his property, or it's within this easement area that was created. And my recommendation is, since I represent the board, this board, and I also represent the ZBA as we normally do, in the agreement that was issued, there was a representation by the village that we would support the application, basically not oppose it. We would take a position in support of it. The homeowner the negotiation was that the homeowner strongly wanted us to be a joint applicant. We refused to do that, and it ended up that we took this sort of neutral language. But because I represent both boards, my recommendation is that for this particular application, that somebody else works with the ZBA. And we had experienced, it's a fairly complicated application. It's as simple as it would look. I think it's going to have some complicated legal issues. So there's one particular person I had in mind that is an experienced ZBA attorney. I think that he can come the night of the meeting.
And that was,
His name is John R. DeCiccio, otherwise J.R., but everybody refers to him as J.R., but his name is John R. DeCiccio. And he has many years of ZBA experience, specifically ZBA zoning experience.
okay.
And the other thing is he's neutral to this. He's not from this area. Doesn't have any preconceptions about anything that's involved.
Okay, the last issue that we have is that we have one of the trustees who has an illegal apartment. We've been trying to work with him for 4 months now. He's not letting code in to see it. Every month there's another reason why it's gonna happen. It's right there. So I feel that,
Wait, when did I not let anybody in?
last month you said
Not
it's
being
ready,
home-
it's
Not being
ready.
home doesn't constitute.
Okay,
turning
but
somebody
last
away.
month you said it's not an issue, he can come anytime he wants, and we've tried to make arrangements, okay? So at this point, give Frank another week to get access, and after that point, I'm recommending that we go with outside legal counsel, because I think you can't do it since you're
No,
trustee,
I
right?
want a prosecution.
So,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with the codes now, and this isn't specific to this, I'm only bringing this up because it has nothing to do with this apartment. I don't know anything about this apartment. Just in general, other things that I've heard about other apartments that I've been involved in the village. I just want to mention that, many years ago, the test for an apartment, or legality or illegality, was, things like a stove or a kitchen. There's many other things that have to be reviewed in an apartment, and working with the village about that. I mean, to walk in and see whether or not there's a stove there is not the issue. There's issues of access. The windows have to be the correct size.
smoke detectors.
Yeah, a lot of different things. The code is actually very complicated. These are things I deal with all the time in these situations. So we're working on that.
Okay, anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Okay. Wanna get started on the public hearing? You okay, everyone's okay? Okay. But, break, well, don't have it. Let's do it. 1 minute.
How long do we break for?
I'm ready to go right. Yeah.
You go to Mario's, go back in 10 minutes.